Thanksgiving is usually a time for comfort, for family, food, and familiar faces around the table. But for some people, the holiday isn't about warmth or gratitude. Sometimes, it's about quiet dread. A strange noise in the middle of the night. A face at the window that shouldn't be there. A presence that no one invited. The following stories were sent in by people who experienced something disturbing on Thanksgiving, events that still haunt them to this day. These aren't just ghost stories. They're quiet reminders that not every Thanksgiving ends with a full stomach and a peaceful night. Story 1, The Knock. It was Thanksgiving night, and I had just finished dinner with my aunt and uncle. They live in a quiet, forested area, about an hour from any major road. It's the kind of place where, once the sun sets, the silence is thick. No cars. No people. Just the occasional rustle of leaves or the howl of some distant animal. My cousin had to work that night, so I ended up staying in the guest room upstairs. I was the only one on the second floor. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke up without knowing why. No sound, no nightmare. Just wide awake. I checked my phone. Nothing new. No messages. The room was dimly lit from a small nightlight in the hallway, casting long, stretched shadows under the door. And then, a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the bedroom door. I sat up. My heart immediately picked up its pace. I waited, expecting my aunt or uncle to say something. Maybe they needed something. But no one said a word. I whispered, "Yeah." Nothing. I stood up and opened the door. The hallway was empty. The night light flickered slightly. I checked the bathroom and then glanced downstairs from the railing. Every light was off, and I could hear both of them snoring faintly from their room. I went back into the guest room, closed the door, and locked it. Not even 5 minutes later, 3 more knocks. Same rhythm. Same pressure. Like someone using their knuckles firmly but not aggressively. I didn't answer this time. I just stared at the door. Then came a whisper. It wasn't a voice I recognized. Not my aunt. Not my uncle. A soft, raspy whisper. Just a few syllables, but not any language I knew. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When the sun came up, I checked the hallway again. Nothing. But when I mentioned it at breakfast, they looked genuinely disturbed. My aunt said no one had been upstairs. My uncle told me, in a quiet voice, that something similar happened to his brother, in the same room, years ago. Story 2, Under the Table. Thanksgiving has always been a big deal for our family. This time, we were all at my grandparents' house, me, my parents, uncles, cousins, about 12 of us. After dinner, most of the adults were in the living room watching the game, and the kids were either playing outside or on their phones. I stayed behind at the long wooden dining table, finishing up a second slice of pie. The room was still warm from the oven, and the only sounds were the murmurs from the TV in the next room and the occasional creak of the house settling. I leaned down to pick up my napkin, which had fallen, and I froze. There was someone under the table. I saw a hand first. Pale, dirty fingernails. Then part of an arm. It wasn't moving. I bolted upright and backed away from the table so fast that my chair tipped over. I called out, but no one seemed to notice. When I finally got someone's attention, they came in, looked under the table, and found nothing. But here's the thing. There was dust disturbed under there. Not just footprints, but long drag marks. As if someone had crawled in, or out, very slowly. I was so shaken that I left early that night. A few weeks later, my cousin told me something weird. Their dog wouldn't go near the dining room anymore. Just stood at the edge of the doorway and whined. Story 3, The Basement Guest. Last Thanksgiving, I volunteered to stay in my friend Dustin's place while he and his family traveled out of state. mostly to feed his dogs and make sure nothing went wrong. The house was old. Cold even with the heat on. But I didn't mind. It was peaceful. Until the second night. I was getting ready for bed when I heard footsteps above me. The guest room was in the basement, and the sound of someone walking across the hardwood floor directly overhead was unmistakable. Slow, paced, like someone checking the rooms one by one. I called out, thinking Dustin might have come home early. No response. I grabbed the flashlight and went upstairs. Nothing. The doors were locked. No one in any of the rooms. I figured maybe the wood was expanding or something. But when I came back down, I noticed the guest bed was slightly shifted. Like someone had pushed it a few inches from the wall. The next morning, I found the basement door open. One of the dogs was just standing at the top of the stairs, growling softly. I called Dustin and asked if anything weird had ever happened in the house. He got quiet and then said, "Don't sleep in the basement. Just sleep on the couch or something." I didn't ask more. Story 4, Eyes by the Window. My parents moved to a new house 2 months before Thanksgiving. It was in a semi-rural area, kind of isolated. The kind of place where you get more deer in the yard than cars on the street. I got in the night before Thanksgiving. I hadn't even unpacked fully. I took the room upstairs, facing the woods. It was a clear night. The moon was almost full, and the backyard was bathed in pale light. Around 3 a.m., I woke up needing water. As I turned to get out of bed, I happened to glance at the window. There were eyes. 2 glowing eyes staring straight into the room. Not reflecting like an animal. These didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stared. I stood frozen. It was too high up for an animal. The window was almost 8 feet off the ground. But the eyes were level with it. I closed the curtain, grabbed my phone, and waited until daylight. When I looked outside the next morning, there were no tracks. No scuff marks. Nothing. Just a few dead leaves where something, or someone, might have stood. I don't sleep in that room anymore when I visit. I don't even look at that window. Most people end their Thanksgiving night feeling full and satisfied, surrounded by family, safe and familiar places. But for the people in these stories, the night left them with something else. Something they still can't explain. A sound. A shadow. A presence they still think about when everything else goes quiet. Maybe the scariest part isn't what they saw, but the fact that it happened on a night meant for peace. Be careful who, or what, you let in when the world slows down. Because sometimes, not everything at the table is human. Happy Thanksgiving.